The opposite of anxiety is not tranquility. It is faith. This moment is about how we will honor our fourth Unitarian Universalist principle, which invites us into a search for meaning that is both free and responsible. Now, speaking of water, have any of you out there seen the trailer for the new live-action film version of Hans Christian Andersen's classic, The Little Mermaid? Yes? Okay, some of you have. If you haven't, I think you could a quick Google will get you there. I have seen the trailer too. I have only seen the trailer once, and it did the job it was meant to do. It got me excited to watch that movie with my children when it will be released. I've only seen the trailer once, but what I have seen is dozens and dozens of jokes, diatribes, angry rants, responses on my social media feed arguing with someone out there, someone nobody has ever met, who holds an extreme and very racist point of view about the black actress who will play the Little Mermaid in the live-action film. This social media presence has adopted a hashtag of "Not My Mermaid." And their argument is so bigoted and so racist, I will not use these precious moments to repeat it. Nor will I use my precious energy or time or creativity toward debunking that obscene claim. Because my time, my energy, my creativity, and yours are finite. Now, my media feed has been chock full of all these jokes, thoughtful arguments, and history lessons about the uses of mermaids in folklore and myth from India, Benin, Ghana, China, Korea. Honestly, the truth is most cultures have a mythical water creature, half woman, half fish, to express themes of female oppression, immortality, exploration. Of course, a mermaid or an elf, for that matter, can be any race at all. And while this is true, all of that is true, I cannot help noticing that we are in an election year, and the date of that election is fast approaching. Now, in this moment, we have record numbers of guns on the highways and byways of Georgia. Our public schools and our libraries are under financial and legal threat like never before. Our voting rights are being slowly stripped away until one day the people will have forgotten that elections are a right and not a privilege, and that the job of the poll worker is to make voting as easy as possible. Now, our rights to choose what happens to our bodies is on the ballot too, along with so many other issues vital to our freedom and to our right to thrive. But my feed is not filled with stories and images of my friends registering new voters. My feed is not filled with acquaintances attending fundraisers and events for the causes they believe in. No, my feed is filled with people fighting about a Disney movie. The people who will benefit most from this fight is the Disney company, who is happy for the constant publicity. But there is a deeper, insidious source drawing our power away from progress and into their fake fights, as Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd calls it, fake fights on the internet about a mythical creature based on a cartoon based on a mythical creature. Now, it is important to have representation. I do not want to diminish the importance and significance of representation. And we are having that and will have it and will continue to demand that and to feel seen by that. But you see, the people of the Not My Mermaid hashtag are not worth a single second of my time or energy because I believe they fall into one of three groups. One, their imagination has already been colonized. Someone whose imagination has been colonized, meaning they cannot imagine a mermaid being anything other than white, is It takes a lot to get me to say this, but probably beyond hope. Or if there is hope for them, it won't come in the form of a self-righteous tweet. Or two, another category, perhaps they are following the advice of extremist conservative operatives whose entire strategy is based on using identity politics to create infighting and division among progressives who attempt to organize for causes that would expand freedoms and services. There's a third category. They might be Russian bots. The opposite of anxiety is not tranquility. It is faith. The New York Times story broke this week. Linda Sarsour, an activist, a Muslim activist, women's rights activist, she awoke on January 23rd, 2017. She logged on the internet, and what she saw made her sick. The weekend before, she had stood in Washington at the head of the Women's March, a mobilization against President Donald Trump that surpassed all expectations on that day. Do you remember that day of that march? Crowds had begun forming at dawn, and by the time she climbed up onto the stage in Washington, they extended farther than the eye could see. More than 4 million people across the United States had taken part, placing it among the largest single-day protests in our nation's history. But then, very soon after that, something shifted. And what Linda Sarsour saw on Twitter that Monday was a torrent of confused grievance that targeted her. And in 15 years as an activist, largely advocating for the rights of Muslims, she had faced pushback, but this was of a different magnitude. A question began to form in her mind. Do my people really hate me that much? That morning, there were things going on that Ms. Sarsour could not imagine. See, more than 4,000 miles away, organizations linked to the Russian government had assigned teams to the Women's March. At desks in St. Petersburg, using models derived from advertising and public relations, copywriters were testing out social media messages critical of the Women's March movement, adopting personas of fictional Americans. They posted as Black women critical of white feminism. They posted as conservative women who felt excluded, and men who mocked participants as hairy-legged whiners. But one message performed better with audiences than any other. It singled out an element of the Women's March that might at first have seemed like a small detail. Among its 4 co-chairs was Ms. Sarsour, a Palestinian-American activist whose hijab marked her as an observant Muslim. And within days, Russian trolls were targeting her online. And over the 18 months that followed, these factories and military intelligence services put a sustained effort into discrediting the entire movement by circulating often fabricated narratives around Mrs. Sarsour. 152 different Russian accounts produced material about her. Public archives of Twitter, known to be Russian, contain over 2,600 tweets about Ms. Sarsour. Many found large audiences. This is all according to an analysis by Advanced Democracy, Inc., a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that conducts public interest research and investigation. Now, many people know now about the story of how the Women's March movement fractured, leaving lasting scars on the American left. They still have not recovered. A fragile coalition to begin with, it headed into crisis over its co-chair's association with Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam leader, who is widely condemned for his anti-Semitic statements. And when that surfaced, progressive groups distanced themselves from Ms. Sarsour and from her fellow March co-chairs, Carmen Perez, Tamika Mallory, and Bob Bland. Many, in fact, called for them to step down. New York Times. This story, amidst a lot of devastating stories out there, this devastated me particularly. That all that mistrust, so quick to infighting, so quick to lose faith in the leaders that they had who had organized so well, which brings me back to these questions of trust and faith. Our trust is so fragile, our faith as precious as drops of water to those who thirst. See, these times we are in now, they call for increased vigilance and protection over our deepest core values. They call for greater nuance, deeper questioning. We must flow confidently in the direction of our dreams, not allow ourselves to be drawn into fake fights, slowly, or in this case, quickly, letting our power ebb and become dispersed. See, the threats to our focus and our impact are indeed very real. They are insidious and often invisible to us. There are campaigns of division that are designed to make you suspect institutions you previously trusted. Know thyself. If it is an institution you fear, then find an individual within that institution. Seek out a human on the other end of the line and talk to them. See, this may be the time of year when we talk about surrendering to the water's flow, but I really think in this year of 2022, when we speak of flow, of the river and the current, we must recognize the power of water, the strength of water when it is mobilized towards a particular direction. How can we harness that power of water and bring it into our power of mission? The opposite of anxiety is not tranquility, it is faith. All weekend, my spouse, James, and I have started a running conversation about our family, about parenting. As our children enter new phases of development, so do the parenting strategies then shift as we try to keep up with the changing times. It keeps us nimble. It keeps us exhausted. It keeps us feeling anxious and caught off guard. What did he say? This weekend, we decided to ask ourselves to get really clear, very specific. What is our family mission statement? I mean, what are we about? What are we about on a core level that really won't change regardless of what's going on at any given moment? How can we stop responding to the whims of 7-year-olds and the advertisers, right, who are talking to them all the time, and start getting clear about our true purpose as a family? If we know what really grounds us, then our center will hold. We will not be thrown off course so easily. We can trust our inner knowing, or we can find thought partners who share a similar mission statement to our own. We can seek their counsel. It's just another one of the things church is so great for, to be parenting alongside others on their mission. But the threats to our mental clarity and our stability, our life's purpose, the work that is ours to do, those threats are very real. The greatest of these is distraction. Stay true to your purpose and the work that is yours to do. It's election season, and our focus is needed more than ever. Don't be thrown off course by fake fights. Some of these are colluding to disperse your precious energy. Listen to the still small voice within. Listen to the wisdom of those who reflect back your mission and vision. Give in to the flow and energy of your power, moving confidently in the direction of your truest purpose. And never underestimate the power of a focused and organized populace. After all, this is how water wears away the stone and shifts the very earth beneath our feet. This is how mountains are moved. So get out there and let's move mountains. Amen.